you're now trying to play catch up to your competitor. So it's going to be this more faster game that everybody has to play nowadays, especially with software. The bottom line is the moat is the user experience. The easier you make that, the better. No one cares if you're using Claude or ChatGPT. Everybody's building a wrapper on top of all these things. No one cares about the back end. It's like Google, Netscape, Safari. It's the same thing. I don't care about the browser. If it solves my problem and you make it easy, that's all I care about. Thanks for having me, Caden. And I'm Makoto Kern. I'm the founder of Impact. Founded this agency for over 20 years now. We've been consulting mainly in product strategy and probably been in almost every single industry out there. A lot of enterprise, a lot of conversion type of trying to improve on the B2C retail conversion rates, and just really trying to bridge the gap of making organizations more user-centered. I didn't start off as a UX designer. I started born and raised in Chicago. I did my master's in electrical engineering and robotics. A lot of software that was built for manufacturing was built by engineers for engineers, but usually the people on the manufacturing floor aren't engineers, but they had to use the software. So my job was to automate and make systems faster, more efficient. And so by natural, I was having to tweak the software. And basically, it naturally led to UX. And so at the same time, that's when the .com boom and bust and all that was happening. And basically I was building websites for friends, my wife and everything. And I got to a point where I'm taking calls over lunch at my full-time job, looking on Craigslist for work and making sales calls. So it got to a point where I eventually quit my job and started doing this full time. And we moved to Austin, Texas about 8-9 years ago, grew the business there, and started getting a lot of enterprise companies, really got into robotics, cybersecurity, energy. And from there, we've just been tweaking value proposition where, most companies, they love to just jump right into wireframes, jumping right into development, thinking that's the shortcut. But we know as product and UX people, that isn't. It's like you're going to build a house, and you're not going to even ask who's going to move into it, but you think they want a 4-bedroom, 5-bathroom house. Once they move in, they're going to want something else. So our process is always like getting leadership to be aligned, finding the business goals, making sure they understand their users' pain points and their journey, and then creating a roadmap that's actually what are risky things, let's user test those, and what are not risky things, let's feed the backlog to the development team. And it is our therapy session for leadership, and we try to really streamline that process, but getting leadership into the room, it's like herding cats sometimes. That's kind of our secret sauce, is really trying to work with people in leadership with lots of egos and trying to get them to understand this is the right way to do it, not just going right into wireframes and just saying, okay, let's throw UX at the end. It's the same thing that we saw in the .com boom bust. And then we're seeing the same mistakes now with AI, yet another feature. So people want to just put everything into tech and a feature versus, hey, let's see if users actually want this. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Yeah. It's been great, especially been doing it for this long. You see a lot of the same repeating patterns.
Yeah, I am so curious. Like last 20 years, like you're like 5 years off the .com bust, like
Yep.
recovering economy. And so what I've noticed in this journey, I've been doing it for close to 7 years now, or probably just 7 years at this point. And I just thought it was really interesting how, because lately it's all AI interviews, just guests coming on to talk about AI. A couple years before that, it was crypto and Bitcoin, and that's pre-FTX. And then before that, like when I was just starting the podcast, it was all about VR. I had VR, AR guests. What were some of the things that were consistent over the last 20 years that are always a bit the timeless stuff? And then what were the fads that you saw come and go? Yeah. Not that like the technology ever went away, but like people... I think like people's expectations about technology were more tempered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think with any new tech stack, you're going to get companies that are super focused on just that feature, that tech, but they're never like user experience is always like on the back burner. And it's really about just like getting that in front of users. If we build it, they'll come type of mentality. during the dot-com boom and bust, Steve Jobs was hyper-focused and Apple took that user-centered thinking. I mean, that's really what drove so much of that, and I'm so happy when Apple, like, really pushed that, and it's not just the interface, it's the experience from the moment you receive the boxed laptop, where it's a nice box, a package, everything. It's the whole customer journey, and so that focus really got people to think about that. You still see, though, the same problems no matter what that technology is. You have to be hyper-focused to know that you're solving someone's problems. With AI now, it's just faster to market, and a high tide raises all boats. So, yeah, if your competitor is using AI, you're using AI, you just pretty much nullified that effect. It's no big deal, but right now, if you have a good idea and you decide, "You know what? We're just gonna launch this idea. We don't need UX improvements. We're good here. Let's just focus on development." That's a problem because you have to have speed and direction, and you have to have continuously improving. So you got to be checking your metrics, checking to see it's happening. And then your competitors, if they see some good idea, they'll prompt it, vibe code it, whatever you want to say, depending on how hard that barrier to entry is, which is a lot lower now. If they do that, you're now trying to play catch up to your competitor. So it's going to be this more faster game that everybody has to play nowadays, especially with software. The bottom line is the moat is the user experience. The easier you make that, the better. No one cares if you're using Claude or ChatGPT. Everybody's building a wrapper on top of all these things. No one cares about the back end. It's like Google, Netscape, Safari. It's the same thing. I don't care about the browser. If it solves my problem and you make it easy, that's all I care about. I don't care if Google made it or Safari made it.
Yeah, I love that idea because you're thinking about competitive differentiation.
Yep.
And when the computing revolution in the 80s happened, you think about the Oracles and the IBMs, it's really like the competitive moat was high barrier to entry from a cost perspective, talent perspective. You could just have more resources and win and have a database company. Like, we hold your data. And then the cost of compute and electrical engineering advanced, and that's probably why that's what you studied. That's probably electrical engineering was a hot thing, like after the Mac launch and stuff. That was my dad's collegiate experience, was that kind of stuff, where it's like making hardware that connects to software, right? It's not just like industrial machinery, it's like compute devices and stuff like that. And then it got, a lot of the core patterns of electrical engineering got commoditized, and people could just build software on top of it. And that's basically our last 20 years probably, right? Where software started eating the world more holistically. The internet got more mature, and like nothing's like really changed. We've gotten maybe smarter because of the internet. The generations like millennials, Gen Z are the most educated humans ever in history, and it's just going to get better and better. And with AI, it's like you have this augmentation of being able to access, have like someone agent, like something agentically do stuff, work on your behalf, and now it's about decision making and stuff like that. X was always a big part of it. What I love about the Apple example is that Steve Jobs saw that, like, hey, everyone's like software, hire a bunch of engineers, and I don't think he ever used the term UX, but he did use the term humanities. Like, here at Apple, we believe that like mixing like the humanities, or like combining the humanities with technology, is what leads to like better outcomes, like better tools. Replace the UX. Oh, I'm big on UX. It's like the humanistic approach, or user-centered. It's just like the humanistic humanities side of things. Like when you study humanities, art, you study like how art makes you feel, and like how composition like makes you think. Like the Romantic era made people like adjust their values. And yeah, like I'm getting a little woo-woo right now, but it's true. It's just if it wasn't, if like it isn't, because if it was woo, it wouldn't lead to such amazing business outcomes.
Yep. Yeah, I think with the rise of the product person, the product owner has been, you see that happening. I thought UX person has been that product person per se before product became a thing. I think because every time I've been in consulting, I always think about what does the business want. I'm not so hyper focused on just a user because I need to build the scale and I need to build the constraints of the development system scale to the business side. So I'm not changing my designs over the next sprint or two. The product person is the glue now that holds all that together, and it can make or break. I've seen horrible product people, and they will break a company's product very quickly if they're not put in check. And they don't, maybe they're good at business, maybe they're good a little bit with design, know some development, but if they don't know how to leverage all three or in the correct way, they're just guessing. And I've had product people who says, let me just test it, and they'll throw a design in front of a group of people. I'm like, Jesus, this is not the way to do it. We know this is groupthink. You're gonna get the squeaky wheel, it gets the grease, but people still make that mistakes. The state of their product people, especially now where I've heard product people say, we don't need to break it. We don't need to change anything. It's working as it is. I said, geez, you're not innovating at all. You
Yeah.
want to see what the competitor is doing because that's the safe play. And that's wrong. That's not the way you do it. And there's no way you're always going to be playing catch up. If the salespeople heard about this or the marketing or execs, they'd be like, are you crazy? But so it's like you got to leverage your UX person to test the risky ideas because that's what they're there for. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't want to get to dev and then decide, oh, nobody wants to use this. You're screwed. You just spent a ton of money, and you still see that time and time again, especially when it's like, I'm seeing AI being integrated. Don't get me wrong. Like Microsoft has its uses, but Microsoft is pushing just like Salesforce, their Copilot down everybody's throat. And it's, hey, let's put it in your application. Great. Sure, you can gather all the great aggregators for, if I'm using Sheets or whatever, your AI is great. But if it's in my application, it's another Clippy right now, and it's not really being used. And we're seeing just when we track prompting and what happens after that, people are falling off after using it once or twice. Like, I don't need to use this. I'm going to go back to what I want, what I'm familiar with. And that's what happens. And so you just spent 6 months integrating this, or how much money you're paying Microsoft or whoever to integrate this tech, and nobody wants to use it. It's the same thing. When you added a .com to the end of your name back in the .com era, your valuation just jumped for some reason. And now you're seeing a lot of frothy, bubbly stuff that's happening where just 50 million, 100 million are getting thrown at people to just because they have AI. And it might be scary if this bubble does pop because there's so much money and so many things being invested into it. And if it's not, there's a run up here that's happening, and soon we're going to hit a wall. And then when we hit that wall, it's going to be a very big deflationary period. So kind of curious to see what happens.
Yeah. Forgot his name. I do a lot of unattributed quotes here. I could just be making this up. I could just be hallucinating. But this one product management leader had this really great LinkedIn post, and I'll link to it in the show notes. He was talking about the exact example of product managers saying like, oh, well, it's what other companies in our industry doing. It's like, it's table stakes. And he's like, well, then why are we even in the game? Like, why are we even playing then? Why haven't they gone to them?
Yeah.
And I'm like starting to paraphrase now. So this is me going off quote, close quote. I'll say that. And yeah, I think the people that really struggle during these big macro trends are the ones that actually ride the trend. And so it's like finding the fortitude to not move with the tide, so to speak, and just stick to first principles. And at the end of the day, all that really matters is what's your positioning and what market segment are you targeting?
Yeah.
And do they want to buy your stuff without being like coerced? That's what success looks like in product. And so people are just like, I moved this metric. And I'm like, did we sell more?
Yeah.
We still have the same amount of customers. Okay, interesting. So customers are complaining about it and they don't like it. And they could say, well, they're not leaving. And it's like, okay. How about IBM said the same thing?
Yeah.
About their products until they became irrelevant. They're still around, but they're not the first choice.
Yeah.
I guess anything powered by their infrastructure, they kind of won in the end, but they understood their positioning. So I think a lot of product managers that think that their job is to be a designer with no design skills are really going to struggle.
Yeah. It's It's tough when you're in when you're in an organization. You're going to have, how do I put this lightly? Have you ever heard of the Peter Principle? So
Oh,
basically,
is I like that one? Yeah.
Principle is basically you are promoted to the point of incompetence.
Mm,
And so you get somebody who's a great developer and they're promoted to manager, but they can't manage people. So they stop there. It's then corporations, oh, this person's doing a good job, but they're just trying to figure it out. They've never been in those positions. And you got people who just get hired thinking they have the credentials, but they don't. And you see it all the time where egos are going to be prevalent and bigger in any organization, especially leadership, because they got to prove themselves. And so they, if they are prone to bad habits or they've been making the bad habits, they usually go back to those bad habits because that's what's comfortable. And when trying to talk to people about what a good process is, I always say it's very hard to do that. It's almost like telling a kid, it's cold outside, wear a jacket, but they don't want to wear a jacket. And so that what happens is they get sick. So I always say when we're going to these consulting gigs, I feel like a lot of these companies, they're the kid who doesn't want to wear a jacket. You try to tell them what's good design, what's good process, what's good strategy. But they're like, nah, we're going to do it our way. And they don't want to wear the jacket. So we go in there. Of course, I bring the jacket. I tell them to put it on after they're cold. But no, it's, God, it's just, it's really hard to really convince certain people, like, what, until they see the result. And user experience is not just like visual UI, which everybody seems to just fall back on when they're not familiar with it. It's also performance. If your dev team is creating this tech debt and you've got this decent UI, but it takes 5-10 seconds to load every time you press a button or do something, and it just
yeah.
gets worse, that's UX. And we can do whatever we can to make it look as pretty as possible. But then if it takes long to load, guess what happens? Especially now, our expectation is that thing loads quick. And if it's taking 3-5 seconds every time you switch a page, oh, it's not a good experience. But we're seeing those issues. And then obviously you've got with AI and everybody vibe coding everything, you're probably going to have privacy issues. You're going to have security flaws, things like that. We've got a couple of cybersecurity clients that they're licking their lips. They're ready. Oh man, we're going to be busy because there's going to be so many things being hacked because everything's vibe coded. And you get one group that says, hey, look at all the code I created. You can all use it now. It's got the same hole going across because they decided to get rid of all the senior development people who actually can understand if that's good code or not. So yeah, it's interesting times.
Yeah, I don't like my experience using vibe coding tools. It's been incredible, like playing with like Claude Code
Mm-hmm.
and really, if I were to say rising tide, the best it does, it can research and set up all my repositories for me and hook up to like my Git without me having to like understand command line interfaces. And you could get that done for $10 and you could like pay as you go. And when things do break, and so I have to ask it, I like think really hard, like debug it, which is fine.
Yep.
Like it does a pretty good job, but it's not replacing the engineering function.
Yeah.
It's definitely redefining the engineering function. I think like engineering isn't about like coding features. It's about, yeah, like you said, it's performance, security, integrity, architecture. They're there to make sure that it's structurally sound and the building's up to code so that you don't get sued if the building falls in on itself. As a designer, I spent the first decade of my career in design, and eventually I kept getting asked like, why don't you go into product? Why are you going to product? And eventually I just was like, yeah, I'm fighting the tide. Like I'm going to make the switch, and I should have done it sooner, but like I've even like noticed like it's tempting for me to even just like vibe code because I'm like I can make a pretty good prototype for a demo, a sales demo. I could put like real data in it. Like this is pretty cool to customers. Like you get signal really fast. This used to take months to get to something this good for demos, but it's getting to a point where I'm like I don't even know if this is the right direction anymore. Lately, I've had to like do like a detox and just like detox from all of it. Like
Yeah.
it just kind of felt like I mean, it's kind of a weird example, but like the first time I started taking Adderall for my ADHD, I'm like, holy crap, like look at all this stuff I can do. And I just was taking on all these projects. I started a
Uh-huh.
business. Like, it was great. And then all of a sudden, you kind of come down from that, and you're like, I don't feel like I've really accomplished anything. I've done a lot. It was easier to do more stuff, but I didn't accomplish a lot. So lately, I've just been reading more because you
Yeah.
still have to program it. I talked to Brian Donahue at Intercom. He's the VP of Fin and product at
Hmm.
Fin, and he just said, like, ironically, this requires everyone to be more technical, because if the coding language is English, you still need to tell it exactly what it needs to do
Yeah.
from a business requirement standpoint. And so the planning phase becomes even more important. And it's like reading, understanding,
Hmm.
building a vocabulary. Like, I took the Shift Nudge course, NDS. I was like the third beta graduate years ago to really refine my UI chops. I'm like rewatching it to hear the vocabulary of really good UI design. Because now I'm like, okay, if my job is to talk and to prompt, the biggest impact is spending more time doing critical thinking.
Yeah. It definitely helps with a lot of the crunching big data sets and research. It definitely helps. And maybe I've been focused so much on the energy industry of oil and gas. And now I'm like, okay, now I want to look at renewables and what do I need to know that I don't know right now? And it helps me crunch those things. Being in the industry, you and I have been in it for so long, we know the right things to ask and we know which direction to take it. Such a key thing. If you're starting off brand new, not so much. You could get the MVP faster. You could brainstorm faster. I could tell right away when somebody's created a website or whatever using AI immediately. And it's funny, you get a visceral reaction. My kids do whenever they say, "Oh, that's done by UI." I don't even want to see it. Or if it's a post, you could tell right away just from the structure. There's certain AI. It's like demonetized in your head of value just because of that. And so the authenticity of certain things are very important. And there's certain things that is a force multiplier for you. I suck at writing, but I've had all these ideas and that I've jotted down for notes and things for blog posts. But I just can't write and I can't translate that to a ghostwriter or anything effectively. But with UI, I can talk to it. I think that's so important when it comes to those kind of things.
What are some things that you've noticed? Like, I'm one of your clients, and I'm trying to understand, I guess, what you're talking about is like the concept of brand. Like, your kids, I don't trust this
Yeah.
because it's not human. If it's completely like imagined, composed, and designed and brought into the world by AI, like end to end, like it was from like a lazy prompt, like, hey, make me this app, right? Which
Hmm.
is like most people's ability to instruct
Yeah.
AI. And the fact that like an app gets made is a miracle based off most of these prompts. Is it a brand anymore? Or is it
Yeah.
the brand like, oh, this is fake. It's not human. It doesn't care about me. Like, it's not being
Hmm.
intentional. Like, how do, like, what are some like heuristics of like why it makes like why it feels fake and why does it look fake?
Yeah. I think it's going to be, we're pattern recognizers.
Yeah.
We recognize immediately certain patterns. And when you see something that has low effort, yeah, idea is 1%, execution is 99%. Ideas are like buses. One will come around again in a short time. Somebody will think of the same idea. 50 people across the state probably have thought of the same idea you just did in your head. Oh, I got this great idea. It's probably already somewhat out there. And now you vibe code that thing. So can everybody else now. And so now it's in the execution. What are you going to do to make that stand out? And if you're using Claude to do it, I'm sure somebody else is using Claude to do it. And I'm assuming Claude's probably pulling in from some of the same data points and ideas. And so it's going to spit out close to the same thing. It's a
Yeah.
race to who executes faster, who continuously improves it, who uses real devs and designers to actually improve on it. That costs money and time and expertise. And yeah, you get your MVP out, you throw it out there. One person looks at it because you post it on X, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. This makes me think about Michael Porter's Five Forces. You just did their case study on competitive differentiation. One company is a bunch of finance guys cosplaying as tech CEOs. They're like, look at how cool ChatGPT is. I'm going to make an app and try to sell it. Maybe they have a good sales co-founder. A tale as old as time. Non-technical co-founders start a tech company, air quotes for those who are listening, and they now can make something that looks like it's a software company, but then they don't deliver, and it eventually like fails. Company B just spends more time really sweating the details on who's the specific segment in the market that we're targeting. We tweaked our marketing copy to make them feel seen, heard, understood, and that we see your problem, we understand it, and here's a price that is affordable by you and relevant to you. Also sweats the details on doing evals, really sweating the details on making the product more high quality. Maybe it's a smaller team, but it's still designers, engineers, a PM. They're just doing
Yeah.
more now in a smaller team, and they win. And it's the same business model, right? What were the activities? Well, different company one, it's okay, we're going to raise a bunch of money and we're going to sell the hell out of it and ship ideas. Okay, those are the activities that they're saying we're going to compete. We're just going to like brute force our way into the market and come. But the problem is it's not communist China or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like people can't be forced to use your thing. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
competition in the market, and so people don't like it. They're not going to spend money on it. And then on the company B side, it's okay. Invest in like high quality design, high quality product thinking, and very, very focused go to market. And I think the people that do very well, like Alex Ramosi talks about how like the people that like want to get into business and they're like switching industries and like business models. Okay, now I'm doing drop shipping, now I'm doing crypto.
Yeah. Yep.
And you pick a thing that you want to be the greatest at and you do it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And
Oh
the
yeah.
thing is like focus, know your positioning, know the market, that the game you want to play, and then
Yep.
you're consistent over the years. And that's the people that seem to do very well and have great careers.
Yeah. That's look, when I got into all this and started this company like 20 years ago, I mean, even then, like just because I'm an engineer doesn't mean I know everything. I just felt, okay, I got to learn and absorb because people who graduated at a great design school, who's been working, they were way ahead of me. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I've got to catch up. So I always felt like I was always behind. So I was just absorbing as fast as I could, as much as I could. And back then, there wasn't so much of YouTube. I'm dating myself a little bit, but there wasn't so much of these courses and YouTube and just resources that you do have now. And so it's just moving at a much faster pace. But yeah, fundamentally, it goes back to you have to adapt. Things just we know that the inevitable thing is change is going to happen. And even now, there's still fundamental things about how humans interact with machines. What's the cognitive psych biases, all that stuff still plays a part. So you need to know those fundamental things. Being able to just want to learn and work with people and do good things that really motivate you. At times when I was looking at all this AI, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to learn this. All this, you're just getting all this thrown at you and like, wait a minute, come on. This is the bubble that people are going after. Don't pay attention to that. Just stick with the fundamentals. And that's what I just took a step back and same thing. I said, you know what, I use AI everywhere all the time, but I do see hallucinations happening. I do see where I have to question things, and I do see outputs that are not the greatest, or there's a mistake, or whatever the case is. So that you've got to be aware of these things, but then just don't use it as like the end all be all type of thing. But I think as an engineer, I'm always loving technology. So I'm always loving to learn new stuff. But yeah, I could see so many people feeling, oh my God, I'm going to be replaced. Or I'm not going to be around. I need to take up plumbing.
Yeah, and those people are worried about trends. I mean, I've fallen for it very recently. I was learning how to use, I invested a lot of money in learning how to use low code development platforms like
Mm-hmm.
Zapier, like learning how to write scripts and stuff because AI made it fairly easy to kind of
Yeah.
glue the pieces together. And you're just like, look how cool this is. I don't use any of it anymore because eventually the desire lines started fooling like the shortcuts I was making in my own software. I wasn't even UXing myself. I was optimizing, maybe I'm using the wrong term, local maximum. I'm trying to cover every use case and,
Yeah.
what if this happens in the future? I have a human computer interaction degree, but when it's my personal projects, it's just easy to not get.
Yeah.
I was learning about like VR and stuff, and there's companies that were started that's like their whole thing is like HoloLens development,
Mm-hmm.
and then the market just didn't care after a while.
No.
And that just tells me like those things, like it's just a technology, like it's a trend, not a problem.
Yep.
And if I just focus on like what the problem is, and the problem usually is like an enterprise SaaS, right? And I imagine that's like a big majority of like your
Hmm.
enterprise or B2B SaaS, like majority of your clients. The problem isn't, oh, did we just tweak the contract enough so that they'd sign it to close the sale? Because
Hmm.
there's too much competition now. You could get away with that as Oracle, like in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could get away with like just shoving it down people's throats with a good sales motion.
Hmm.
But now it's just so easy to make functionally paired software
Yep.
that you actually have to deliver on the promise, like proof over promise, right? In enterprise, it is really just about the user. Yeah, you could just mandate, hey, everyone's got to use this tool. But I've always seen it. Give it a couple years, the person that bought the software in the first place is going to feel pressure to buy a new one because everyone's complaining and their team's not happy.
Yep.
And so it's inevitable that they're going to churn. If a team was like, I love this tool. I love this tool. Could we use this tool? Could we please use this tool? Figma is like a perfect example of that. It's
Oh yeah.
just focus on like the actual like target user, the segment. Designers, like they started out like designers at tech companies. And then eventually PMs, oh, I want to use this tool. And then eventually now it's just you're going to the CEO to sell Figma
Yeah.
because it's like an easy choice. Everybody wants it. I'll look like a hero.
Yeah, definitely. I think tools are always going to be, it's such a game changer within organizations if you get the right tool. Otherwise, I think everybody has, I don't know what the number is, but I'm sure there's a certain number of software SaaS tools everybody has within their organization. And you just see that monthly fee ticking up. It's
Yeah,
just helping.
another $8 seat for
Yeah.
someone to just view it and not use the tool. It's most Tableau licenses. Like what a money pit.
Yep.
Especially now that like it's easier, like ChatGPT's like analytic capabilities. I mean,
Hmm.
Claude, like I hardly use Tableau anymore. I just use it to get the report and then analyze the data in a better tool that has reasoning abilities. Could you tell me about a time where this reinforced this belief that you had in really strong X? Maybe a time with a client, like a case study, maybe recently, where they're like, hey, let's do AI. We're hiring you because we need burst capacity to do AI or something like that.
Yeah. We do have an AI team
Yeah.
within one of our oldest clients, the longest clients. I think everybody's seen it too. You've got private equity coming in and buying up and siphoning profits off of companies, and companies trying to make it look as profitable as possible for PE. There's a lot of layoffs at certain companies. At this one company, we were able to, right when ChatGPT was coming out, we said, hey, there's a hackathon. I said, let's do something with AI. And the executive team was super impressed. They saw, wow, this is something that can actually make us a lot of money and save us a lot of money. Try to offshore it. Once they say, okay, can you guys teach these offshore people? I'm like, no. And so they try to replace us, couldn't do it, couldn't find the expertise. And there's no way. It comes back into what's how easy it is, what's the prompts, because it's a very technical thing that you're asking it questions, and you have to know how to, you don't even know what to prompt it as a user. So being able to do that, again, it comes back to the user experience. Just one example of where they think they can just get the newest tech through the cheapest labor, and it just doesn't work that way. It takes expertise and skill to figure out what's the best way to use it. But then, yeah, we've had other clients where they said, hey, we're just going to integrate AI into our enterprise software. Do you want us to make sure you're doing it right? Should we ask the users how they want to interact with it? No, we're just going to integrate it. Okay.
Yeah.
8 months later, it's integrated. I'm sure everybody uses Pendo, who are product people. There's an analytics tool. We take a look at Pendo. We see a prompt, maybe two prompts during training, nothing. So nobody's using this. And this is exactly why you test and not now all the big features that we identified as being the most important for users, you put that on the back burner for 8 months and you resource off the entire team to just focus on AI. And this didn't work. So now your competitors who didn't do that, who were developing features that competes with your software, has now surpassed you.
In Dan Schipper's podcast, AI and
Yeah.
it's the Every Guy company. They did a podcast with the browser company, and I'm a big fan of Arc Browser. they're not going to support it anymore. Like they're basically talking about why they are going to deprecate Arc browser, and they made a completely new browser. And what they were talking about was, yeah, we thought when AI came along, all like the management consultant, McKinsey, like thought leaders were like, oh, this is just going to make the incumbent companies just more richer.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, actually, turns out no, because they have so much like tech debt, and their software is like button based UX that like there's decades of sunk costs now.
Yeah.
Where it is the whole innovator's dilemma. Like the innovator's dilemma is happening right now to Google, because like Gemini and spreadsheets, the best it can do is read data. It's nothing impressive at all.
Yeah.
And so the browser companies launched Dia, which is awesome, but they're just like, no, you can't like add this on. It has to be baked in from the get-go. And so the only way that Google Sheets is going to become like this incredibly powerful AI tool is they have to rebuild the architecture
Yeah.
to be like agent first focus. Now it's happening, and it's happening so fast. Like Windsurf, they're getting disrupted because there's like these terminal interface companies where it's a terminal first designed for Entic development. And then the composer for the code is like the secondary feature to like double check the agents and override the agent's work if you need to.
Yep.
Claude Code's like, why would you even need an IDE? Just have the computer drive the computer.
Yep.
And yeah, like that's the opportunity, because anyone that just adds code on, something that you said that really stuck out with me is that you don't know what the capabilities are of this SaaS tool. Like you had to get trained and learn in the first place so that you could interact with it and use it. You still have to do that. And now you just made it harder by just putting a chat box. And then the chat box doesn't even deliver anything. Cool, this tool's useless. Yeah.
Yeah. Who I want to improve their AI is Apple. It sucks. That's who I would love to. That's where I want AI to be better at, because I use a lot of Apple products. So does everybody else. And Siri's voice commands are horrendous.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And
No.
like you think that they could, but I think the hard truth is they're a public company. There's a ton of sunk cost into the current way things are done. They'd effectively have to like build everything from the ground. No, Siri shouldn't even exist.
No.
Like Siri is like an LLM wrapper.
I know.
And so if you're Tim Cook and you're just like, how do I tell investors that they're not going to get a dividend for a few years?
Yeah.
This is how disruptive this technology is.
They've got so much money. They need to put some focus on that.
Yeah. Knowing Apple, they always seem to come through in the end, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Makoto, what do you feel hasn't been said that should be said before we sign off? And how can people find your work?
I think for people who are out there and if they're listening to this podcast, and I'm just thinking about the audience, if you're listening to this and you are a product person, I think definitely lean on your UX person. And if you're not confident with that person, maybe you got to really think about who you have on your team. But if you want to innovate, you can't be scared about utilizing the right resources in the right way to innovate, because now if you don't, it's going to be detrimental to your company. So don't rely so much on technology, but always fall back on the right processes. If your product interfaces with users like most of them do, then be super hyper focused on the user experience, and always keep that at the seat of the table. Even if you have board members pushing your CEOs and your leaders into a certain direction, you have to get them to understand, are you solving a user's pain point or not? If you're not, then who knows what you're building towards and if it's going to make you any revenue. So if you want to listen to more, we actually have our own podcast called Make an Impact Podcast with 3 eyes. I think we just hit like 28,000 subscribers pretty well. It's pretty cool to see some of that. But check out our website at iimpact.io. You can see some case studies or find me on LinkedIn, reach out, love to chat. And that's about it.
Yeah, I feel like the one thing that hasn't been said, right? Because there's just so much uncertainty, but a couple things that I've learned is the developer, like the engineer who invented Tesla Autopilot, very novel approach to self-driving cars, building like neural networks and stuff. And he goes to this university, gives a talk, and he's talking about AI, and he's like, Think of AI as the terminal, like you're just talking to the computer, and the new language is English. And so now you just need to know what to like tell the computer, and you like know what you want, compared to what McKinsey management consulting companies are telling their clients, like, oh, composable systems, agentic operations and stuff. And it doesn't work. Like if I could encapsulate the big step function in technology right now is you can now talk to your computer. That's it.
Mhm.
There's no translation layer of keyboards and
Yeah.
text. You can now talk. You literally download Whisperflow. You could talk to it and focus more on the principles. If there's anything to say, it's cool. You can now talk to your computer. You don't need to learn a new language. Like you're speaking the
Mhm.
same language. It's how sci-fi, where they got the translator modules in your
Yeah.
brain so that you can talk to the aliens. You can now talk to the alien. What are you going to do with it?
That's
How I
next
would end
with
it.
Neuralink.
Yeah, like, this actually scares me because now this actually makes Neuralink more viable.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, so hey, this was a very interesting conversation. I think
Cool.
like any big disruptive trend, I still feel tension, but at least I know what solid ground to stand on and just hold my ground. I'll know I'll be okay if I do that and just fight the urge to let AI buy my Instacart
Yep.
groceries. So thank you so much for coming on the show. You
Yeah.
have a
Thanks
good
for
one.
having me. It's been awesome.